All right, welcome back to One True Podcast. Zach Smith, excuse me, I'm stumbling over my own words already. With me, as always, Zach went for a run this morning. Zach, you doing all right?
Doing great. It's loving the cooler weather. That just makes everything so much easier. And I'm glad it's not 100 degrees and the sun is beating down on my back the entire time.
And I love the fact that his Zoom profile comes up as Gary Don Williams, which is what Eric Kelly, by the way, always calls you, Don. We have Don Williams from the Lubbock Avalanche-Journal. Of course, it is Baylor Texas Tech week. Don's been covering the Red Raiders for a long time, been at the AJ since '88. So, Don, thanks for hopping on, man.
Always a pleasure, Brice. Looking forward to my trip to Waco. I have my family. I was born and raised in West Texas, but really my family's hometown is Hillsboro. So I've made many a trip to the Waco area, back and forth at summer vacation and Christmas my entire life. So it's always kind of a nostalgic road for me.
No doubt, including many trips for those Texas Sports Hall of Fame selection committee meetings that you and I are on. And in recent years, they've sort of advanced technology, and a lot of guys jump on via Zoom, so you can save that drive. But it is always fun when we get together for that. So, guys, this isn't probably where Baylor and Texas Tech expected to be at this stage of the season, but the Bears and Red Raiders have identical 2-3 overall records, 1-1 in the Big 12 as they go into Saturday's game at McLane Stadium. So despite that, both should come into this game with a fair amount of momentum. The Red Raiders drilled Houston last week, 49-28, scored some on special teams, scored had a bunch of offense. First Big 12 win of the season for the Red Raiders. And then meanwhile, all Baylor did was complete the largest comeback in school history. I think Zach and I still don't know what happened there. That was just incredible. They overcame a 28-point hole in the second half to stun UCF 36-35. So this has historically been a really tight series between Tech and Baylor. How do you guys see it matching up? Don, go ahead.
Last I checked, Texas Tech was a 1-point favorite, which if Texas Tech actually goes to Waco and wins, it'll be significant for the Red Raiders and their fans in the sense that winning on the road has been very elusive for Joey McGuire's teams. They've really, only done it once. They won up at Iowa State last season in mid-November, the coldest game I've ever covered. It was 22 degrees at kickoff, and it was 11 degrees when the game ended that night.
Yikes.
Tech won 14-10, and the thing that makes that, unique is that's the only true road game that Tech has won since the beginning of last season. They did have a very impressive bowl performance, beating Ole Miss 42-25 at the Texas Bowl last year. Third game from start to finish against a good solid SEC team. But on the road, it's been a struggle. They opened the season losing as a two-touchdown favorite at Wyoming, and then lost as a touchdown favorite at West Virginia. So still looking for a road win. And I was just thinking about this before I came on with you guys. I don't remember. Something's slipping my mind. I don't remember the last Texas Tech at Baylor game played at night. Seems like every time I've been down there, it's been an afternoon game. But so anyhow, that aside, I think Texas Tech has something to prove, that in a game that's viewed as a close game that could go either way, they can actually win a game on the road.
Yeah, no doubt. Meanwhile, it's been a little bit different for Dave Aranda's team. certainly last year, for all of Baylor's sort of ups and downs, they were pretty good on the road. They had some kind of
They're
signature.
very good on the road out here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, including on Patrick Mahomes' night in Lubbock. Yeah, they spoiled the party there for sure. And then went on the road, beat Oklahoma in Norman. So Zach, I mean, they're at home. They haven't been good
Yeah.
at home this year.
Well, yeah, I think, I mean, as someone who picked the winner of this game to go to the Big 12 championship game in the preseason, I don't think that's necessarily going to happen now. But I think it's going to be a really, really close, hard fought game. I'm expecting a really good game to come down to the end. That the rushing attack for Texas Tech, I think they had over 200 yards against Houston. I know that at least in the first half against UCF, Baylor, the defense was giving up like 13 yards a play. And I know that was some big plays and some broken coverages and everything, but still that number, I think that's a way that Texas Tech could exploit Baylor, especially now without middle linebacker Mike Smith, who's out for the season with an ACL, a torn ACL. So, I think that there are some advantages for both sides. Like I said, the rushing attack for Texas Tech, and I think the passing game for Baylor is starting to come along. So, I think it's going to be a really, really close game and a good one. Like I said, I don't know if it's going to be Big 12 championship. The winner is going to the Big 12 championship, but again, it's a good rivalry game.
Yeah, no doubt it is. And I think both of you guys make some good points that, I think it could be high scoring just because, again, as Zach said, Baylor's defense certainly was getting gashed early and often in that UCF game and still has some things to figure out. I don't think that comeback over UCF is necessarily just a magic pill for Baylor. They still have things they have to get cleaned up. For a good 3.5 quarters, it was pretty ugly for the Bears, and then they caught fire, and it was pretty incredible. We'll see how this one goes. Of course, both teams debuted new quarterbacks last week. So after missing 3 games with an MCL injury, Blake Shapen returned. He was the starter coming into the season for Baylor. And Shapen played well. He rushed for a score. He threw for a score. Made some heady plays during that rally for the Bears. Meanwhile, the Red Raiders are in a different situation as they had to turn to their backup it's Behren Morton, correct, Don?
Behren Morton, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just want to make sure I pronounce that right. And Tyler, say his name.
Shough.
Yes. After the starter, Tyler Shough went down with a broken leg against West Virginia. So, Don, I'm going to start with you. How does this Red Raider offense change under Morton?
Not substantially. Probably the biggest difference with the offense with Morton compared to with Shough is maybe a little less quarterback run game because Tyler Shough is 6'5" and he's 230 or more pounds. You would not think so or expect it just looking at him, but he's a guy who has been an effective runner. Has pretty good speed and is just a big, brawny, physical guy. And the early first month of the season, the QB run game was a significant part of the offense. Probably, I guess, he had 100. He was over 100 yards rushing at Wyoming, and in the Oregon game, or maybe his Tarleton State game, I think he had 145 yards gross rushing minus the yards lost to sacks. So that was something that they used and took advantage of when he was there. And now, as you mentioned, he suffered a fractured fibula at West Virginia, going to be down minimum of 6 to 8 minimum of 6 to 8 weeks. I think the reality is it's probably a season-ending injury. Probably probably won't be back this year. Yeah, it's not to say that Behren Morton can't run. Pardon me, can't run effectively, because he's a mobile quarterback too. But now the guy behind Behren Morton is a true freshman, so they do not want to get another quarterback hurt. That's not to say that Behren Morton won't run, but that's his bread and butter, and the thing he likes to do best is throw the football. And one of the things that, man, really one of the reasons that uh, that maybe he has not won the starting quarterback job previously, as he's been a little too predisposed to throw the football, maybe for Zach Kitley, the offensive coordinator's liking. Because when they said, Behren Morton's a guy, he's young, kind of fearless. He'll occasionally throw from the crazy arm angles, so people kind of reminds people of Patrick Mahomes in that regard. So he's the guy that the fans have been clamoring for. Anytime Tyler Shough has not been perfect over the last couple of years, folks have been put in Morton. He's a more talented young guy. But I think the thing about it was, and Zach Kitley said this, there are times when he would maybe not see the run game opportunity, or would see the run game opportunity and would still check into a pass. So they liked the way Shough ran the offense, pre-snap recognition, those sorts of things. But all that aside, Behren Morton's a guy who's, he's a highly recruited guy. Could have gone a lot of different places. Top 50, I think, recruit in Texas when he was coming out of Eastland High School. And so now he has a long runway to be the guy. But pretty much immediately, though, there's also an injury concern with him, because he went down hard on his shoulder up there at West Virginia, third quarter of that game. He finished the game. He played the full game last week, but last week he did not throw in practice. The shoulder is banged up enough that it was that sore that Joey McGuire said, let's just get him to game day. If we have him throwing on Tuesday and Wednesday, then that's just using bullets, so to speak, and maybe would further aggravate the soreness that he was dealing with. So he was seeing the trainer he was in the training room pretty much every day last week, and I'm sure it still has been this week. Now, Joyce said that he would throw a couple of days this week. They anticipated Tuesday and Thursday that he would be, they would let him throw the football. But no, that's another thing to be aware of in this game, is if he gets hit on the shoulder, his shoulder's already hurt.
Wow. Yeah. So it sounds to me like Morton can't shuck the defenders in the running game quite like the incumbent. So you can use that, Don, in your columns and stuff if you want. They saw Shough, Baylor did last year, and that was probably the DB's high water mark of the season. They had several interceptions in that game, probably played their best game. Maybe Shough forced a couple, but at any rate, we'll see how Behren Morton does on Saturday. So Zach, as far as Blake Shapen, a little bit different situation in that, right. He's not the backup. He was the starter and was out with injury and now is back. So how does the offense change under him compared to Sawyer Robertson?
Well, from an emotional standpoint, there's just a connection there that, that is unmatched, right? He's been the starter for 2.5 years now. So, I know Monterey Baldwin, I know I'm writing about him this week. He, the connection that they have is hard to beat. Right. And, that I think that from an emotional standpoint really sets him apart from Sawyer Robertson. Not to say that Robertson can't get there in the future, but Baylor or Shapen has been around. And then on the field, I think Shapen really, gives a little bit more creativity once he gets outside of the pocket, a little bit more maybe athleticism and just kind of making that quick right decision kind of on the run, as opposed to Sawyer Robertson, who I think, well, he is pretty athletic, or can be, is much more of a pure pocket passer. I don't know. So yeah, I think that Shapen is just way more dynamic, and he's more kind of ingrained in what Baylor wants to do offensively, and there's a connection there that is hard to beat.
Yeah, of course, has some skins on the wall, including a Big 12 championship. That's, that's not nothing. And you mentioned just his dynamic ability to kind of get out of the pocket and make plays. I thought you and I were talking about it at one point. One of the most just sort of unique plays, I guess. I don't know. I'm trying to see how to describe it. There was a 2-point pass where Blake was kind of trying to make something happen. There was nobody open. And at one point, in scrambling away from the defense, he had his back to the end zone. And then he pivoted back around and found a guy open for the pass. And it was just like, okay, that was shades of Patrick Mahomes there. I know that's high praise out there in West Texas. We know what Pat did, and what he still continues to do. He did have he also had a little underhand pass. Remember, Zach?
Absolutely.
I was thinking during that game, I was thinking that looked like Mahomes too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So
little shovel. Yeah.
It was pretty sweet. I think more and more quarterbacks are trying those kind of things, probably inspired by Mr. Mahomes. So go ahead, Don.
I was going to say, jumping in here for just a moment, that
Sure.
the quarterback aspect is kind of interesting. Interesting out here. Now, I guess obviously with Blake Shapen back, maybe Sawyer Robertson doesn't get in the game on Saturday, or doesn't get in the game as much. But he's a Lubbock guy. Went to Lubbock Coronado, and he and Behren Morton actually, they came out the same year, and both guys were Texas top 50 recruits, and I believe Tech kind of chose Behren over Sawyer because, of course, every team wants to get their quarterback, and a lot of schools don't take more than one in a class, and so after. I think Tech kind of had, even though they liked Sawyer, they kind of regarded Behren Morton a little bit higher. But that's an interesting angle. And whatever Sawyer Robertson winds up playing in the game against Texas Tech, there'll be a lot of kind of local intrigue out here in Lubbock, because he got Lubbock Coronado guy, and he has deep Texas Tech roots because his aunt and uncle are both former Texas Tech basketball players. Alicia Robertson, now Ellis, who was a Lady Raiders player under Marcia Sharp, and her husband's Andy Ellis, who was a 6'10", really good 6'10" kind of post player forward for Bob Knight's really good teams back there about 20 years ago. So like I say, whenever Sawyer gets in, there'll be a lot of folks in Lubbock and West Texas taking notice.
I can tell you this: if Sawyer gets in and has some sort of significant contribution to the game, so there's this. I'm going way rabbit hole here. There's this country band that I like that's called the Panhandlers. It's a West Texas sort of super band made up of different guys, and they have this one song called basically it kind of goes like, I'm not crying, that's just West Texas in my eye. So I'm getting that in my column if Sawyer Robertson sticks it to the Red Raiders there. Nobody will get it, but anyway. All right, guys, let's move on. It's not the second Saturday of October, but it is Oklahoma Texas week, I guess, because October 1st was on Sunday. I don't know. So yeah, the Sooners and Longhorns will tangle for the last time as Big 12 opponents this Saturday. What is the likelihood that this is a Big 12 championship game preview, and who wins at the State Fair on Saturday? What do you think?
To me, I think it's highly likely. I haven't seen anything to this point to indicate that those are not the top two teams in the Big 12. I think the next closest team in my eyes, in my mind, would be Kansas State. And of course, Kansas State kind of took an early loss that surprised people and knocked them out of the top 25, losing at Missouri. Of course, Missouri's gone on to be 5-0 now. I think K-State's a good team, but minus Deuce Vaughn, and they do still have a good running game, I believe. But minus Deuce Vaughn and some of the people they lost, are they as good a team as last year to return to the Big 12 title game? I don't think so, at least in view, again, of what we've seen from Texas and Oklahoma early, which both of those teams have been very impressive early. And I picked Texas to win this weekend. And to me, it's like the skill position talent that Texas has at wide receiver, tight end, at running back. To me, that's probably the biggest question was how effectively could Texas replace Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson? I don't know if Jonathan Brooks is that level of talent at running back, but again, they have so much talent just across the board at the skill positions that I think they're a handful for whomever they play. And now it looks like Ewers is playing better, at least more consistently on a week in, week out basis. So I do think it's a preview of Big 12 championship game, and I picked Texas to win on Saturday.
Zach, what do you say?
I mean, I've been the biggest Texas fan on here all year, right? Not Texas fan, Texas supporter, I guess. Same.
You've been ringing that bell for the long
right.
Sure.
So that's not going to change now. I think it's hard for me to find a weakness for Texas. I look at even the defensive line is just elite. The linebackers elite. I guess maybe Oklahoma could try to exploit the secondary and try to get some big chunk plays. If those add up, anything can happen. But I think this is a very clear Big 12 championship game preview. I know your Mark isn't going to like to hear that or want that, but
right.
I think it's pretty clear. And I mean, I like Oklahoma. I like Brent Venables. I think they're headed in the right direction. I think Dylan Gabriel is a very, very good college quarterback, but I just don't think they can shake a stick at Texas, right? I think Texas is on, I think, arguably the best team in the country, right? So
they've been getting some votes at number one, including Kirk Bowles, who Don and I have, and of course we had him on the podcast with Zach too. We've known Kirk a long time, and I would not call Kirk a UT homer at all. He certainly thinks about his vote. So for him to install the Longhorns at number one says something. I'm with you guys. It's certainly setting up as a Big 12 championship preview. And that could be interesting because, this could be a game where they learn a little bit about each other, and, setting up the adjustments for round two, I do think it'll be a better game than it was last year. It was a rare blowout in this series last year. UT handed it to them. I don't see that happening. I don't care how good Texas is. I think OU is pretty good too. So I think it's much tighter. But the way the Longhorns are going right now, they're looking pretty tough. So, give me the Longhorns on Saturday. So these two programs have combined for 17 out of the 27 Big 12 football championships. Now, obviously 14 of those belong to OU, 3 to the Longhorns. That includes one year where I think OU and K-State maybe shared the title. Remember, there was a stretch there where there was no Big 12 championship game. So, With that duo now exiting for the SEC, it perhaps leaves a vacancy in this power position in the Big 12. So do you guys think that the new Big 12 will be more wide open and competitive, or can someone else kind of ascend to that place as kind of the top dog? How do you kind of view that?
I've answered every question first, so I'll let Zach answer this.
There you
go. Yeah, I think that there's a good chance that the Big 12, in a way, kind of turns into kind of how the Pac-12 is now, if that makes any sense, where like there's a bunch of really, really good teams that kind of cannibalize themselves before the postseason comes. And, you know, it's the constant narrative is, can the Big 12 get over the hump? How can it? There's no one, we all look at USC right now is really good. Oregon's really good. Washington's really good, but they've all got to play each other, and maybe none of them make the playoff. So I think that, I guess that changes with the 12-team playoff coming down the road. But long story short, I don't know. I think it's going to be a very competitive conference. And I think that there's going to be a lot of teams competing for playoff spots, including Baylor, including Texas Tech. So, yeah.
Tom, what do you think?
I don't see any way that one program emerges and sustains the level of dominance that Oklahoma sustained in this conference for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And now those championships, so their championship numbers, 14 out of 27. I mean, every other year.
Right.
On average, Oklahoma's won the conference, and remember that those first few years, Oklahoma was the first few years of the Big 12. Oklahoma was in a really down cycle, one of the worst cycles of our lifetimes, and so really those championships were condensed into an even shorter period. I don't see any of those schools rising to that level of dominance. I do think it's very much wide open once Oklahoma and Texas leave. And to me, I wrote this week. I think one of the aggravating things in Texas Tech's case, and I guess probably in Baylor's case too, is that it's pretty wide open to be, up there in the third position behind Texas and OU this year, and Texas Tech has blown that opportunity. With upset loss at Wyoming, upset loss at West Virginia. I mean, this team by all rights, should be 4-1, and heck, they blew 2 leads late in the Oregon game. I mean, Tech could easily be 5-0 had they played at the level that they played at in the Texas Bowl. And yes, I know it's a new year, but it's largely the same cast of characters who played as well as they did in the Texas Bowl, and they haven't followed it up this year. So that's kind of the irritating. I think, again, from a Texas Tech standpoint, that's kind of the irritating thing, is they very well could be, and I think should be, right up there trying to get a little bit of the spotlight that Texas and Oklahoma have now. But going forward from 2024 and on, I think it's an interesting conference from the standpoint of you have so many programs that have had high points in their history, have had good teams in their history, yet none of those programs really, I would say, is what you'd call a traditional, power.
Right.
On the level of an Alabama.
Yeah, a brand name. Yeah.
Or Texas or an Oklahoma or Ohio State or Michigan, like a Southern Cal. So I think from year to year, it's going to be very, very, very open. It's going to be what program has kept together a group of veteran players who this is their year. I think we'll see a lot of that passed around from one year to the next. Very, like Zach said a moment ago, I think a lot like the Pac-12. I think a lot like the Pac-12 kind of in years past. I think you'll have a lot of entertaining, high scoring games, and a lot of games that are like kind of like this weekend, where it's like one team is favored by a point. It's a toss up game. It's whichever team plays the best. And like I say, I have a hard time thinking of an analogy to a conference that we've seen in our lifetimes. Rice. We're a couple of the older guys here, where you've had a lot of good teams in the conference, but like I say, no traditional power blue blood type of program.
Yeah, I think those are good points. When OU and Texas first announced they were leaving, I wrote a column at some point where I mentioned that Baylor and Oklahoma State could potentially ascend to be maybe the new powers in the Big 12, just because they had been relatively consistent. I wrote that column before Utah, Arizona State, and Colorado were coming to town. That does sort of change the dynamic, and I think it makes it even more wide open. But I agree with you guys. I think it'll probably be a pretty competitive conference with different teams stepping up in different years. I could see Utah being, the class of the league one year, and maybe a Baylor or Texas Tech or BYU or somebody another year. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So finally, in honor of the State Fair happening, sometimes we close with a little thing I call culinary corner. I mean, we're sports writers. We talk about food a lot. So I want to know if you were headed to the fair this weekend, what deep fried treat would you want to sample? Go ahead, Don.
We always have the Panhandle South Plains Fair out here in late September, so it was like the last. Its last day, I think, was last Saturday. I generally will go out to the fair at some point. Our Panhandle South Plains Fair. I didn't make it this year. I don't know, unless it's a corn dog. I generally have been when I go out to the fair, I generally look for the best burger or something barbecue wise, because that's kind of how I am. If you ask me for a deep fried thing, like I said, I guess I'd probably say the traditional corn dog.
Okay, Zach, you're a marathoner. And so Don, this is crazy. He's so not a traditional sports writer. He's headed to run in the Chicago Marathon.
Well, I've also never been to the Texas State Fair, so
that's a bucket list.
Does this count? I've got this. This is my coffee mug.
There you go. I like it.
Does that? Even though I'm from Michigan, I think that there is I was listening to a podcast earlier, like ranking some of the food, and I think that they were saying that there's a deep fried cinnamon roll with brisket in it.
Oh my!
And that's a new thing this year or something. Yeah. So that, like, a deep fried cinnamon roll with brisket, like, I don't care. I'll run another marathon if I can eat another one of those at the end. Give me that instead of a medal. I don't care.
So I have covered OU Texas a few times, and typically when I have gone up there, I will partake of the deep fried Snickers, which is certainly a good way to go. They have deep fried Oreos, which sound pretty good too. But I was, in preparation for my own answer to this question, I was kind of looking up what the State Fair was offering this year. And have you guys had birria? The Mexican beef, whatever it is. So they have something this year called deep fried birria bombs. And it's got like Osaka cheese in it and birria, and it's deep fried. And I was like, yes, I want a bowl of those.
I haven't had that.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. Get you some birria. There's probably a food truck in Lubbock that sells it somewhere. We have them here, so yeah. I probably need a nap now thinking about all this food. But Don,
I have a question.
Yeah.
I held off asking it right at the top when you said Zach ran this morning. Is physical fitness kind of a new condition of employment in the Waco Trib Sports Department. I mean, Zach having to follow up on the John Warner. I guess
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
John the mountain climber. I guess I had to go try to see if I could trump that. To Zach's credit, he did let me know about the marathon right up front, and was like, "Look, I'm committed to this. I would have to miss Baylor Tech Week," and I was like, "Okay, I've got a guy in reserve that I can call on."
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's okay.
The new Zach, actually.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun calling him the new Zach on Saturday. That's for sure. Don, looking forward to seeing you here in Waco. It was at Jerry World for a lot of years, but it's kind of fun that we're back to the old Lubbock Waco trade off here. So thanks for coming on with us, and I guess we'll see you on Saturday.
All right, sounds good. I enjoyed it, guys, and looking forward to seeing you again on Saturday, Bryce.
Yep, absolutely. We'll see you.